thought we were, this is a bit odd. And then we had to go and the city, the federal government had these programs that had never been implemented, that Trudeau had put in place to honor, his alliance with the NDP. And we went up. And the turning point, I think, was when David Crombie, as the mayor, decided he had to get the money out of Ottawa to actually fund the purchase of the lands. He phoned up Mayor Art Phillips in Vancouver, and they decided that, in fact, they would go up together because Art Phillips wanted to build the False Creek development in Vancouver. And they went up to the federal government and they said to the housing minister of the time, if you give us the mortgage money to actually purchase the land in St. Lawrence, we will not object when you give money to Jean Drapeau for the Olympics in 1976. That was the deal. We got the mortgage money to buy the land, and we proceeded. And at that point then, the feds and the province both said, this development looks really interesting, we want to be a part of it. But right? In terms of how we worked out the plan, we had a community. I've written a lot in my most recent book, how we changed Toronto. I've got a whole chapter in the building of St. Lawrence.
I've read the book. Very good. Thank you for writing it. How many RGI versus market units are there? What's the ratio there?
What we said in St. Lawrence was a third of all the units in the rental buildings, whether it's a co-op or a non-profit or private rental, a third of them will be RGI. So in fact, all of those buildings, there's a real mixture of income groups, which I think has served St. Lawrence and the people who live there very, very well.
And was it City Home that did that, or the city directly?
Sorry.
City Home, was it there at
City Home was involved in it, but we also involved lots of nonprofits and lots of nonprofit cooperatives.
So it was the city's housing department that led?
We were just developing it. When we started St. Lawrence, we did not have a housing department. Sorry, we didn't. We had somebody in the mayor's office called Michael Dennis who knew a bit about housing, and that's how we began. I think it shows the power of the initiative of the city. If the city decides it's going to take a good, strong stand to do something really innovative like affordable housing as we did, that in fact it can succeed, and the other governments, it's not a matter of going up and begging, they then want to buy in.
So that right now, the city is taking a big lead on transit planning to make sure that we're coming up to the moment. Are you suggesting that that's more a role for the city, the mayor and the city, than leaving it simply up to Toronto Community Housing, which is kind of our current model?
Yeah, if you guys went ahead and said, here are 3 projects we want to do, and we're going to go ahead with them. As an example, just 3 projects, of each of them 200 or 300 units apiece. I think that before you knew it, the other levels of government say, we want to be part of that. And that would be the start of a whole big program.
Currently, we're in a real estate review. We're amalgamating all of our real estate into one corporation. One of our lenses, do you think one of our lenses should really be making sure that we're saving acres or large number of acreage for these types of developments?
Sorry, you don't need that. You've got the public housing projects. As I say, there's 110 of them in Toronto. That's all public land right now. Start redeveloping those. Go to O'Connor Heights, in Victoria Park there. What's that, 60 acres of land? Now developed at 10 units an acre?
And your premise, I'm hearing very clearly, is that, thank you, that the model of of having a third of the housing that would be redeveloped as RGI or low end of market or high end,
third or whatever,
that should be the model. It shouldn't be 200 units of RGI and across the street another 200 of market units. That's a poor model, and it's not working, and it hasn't worked.
I think you can also talk about low-income ownership housing. I think that many people who live in public housing now would be absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to buy a unit if they can afford it. You have to be very careful about how you arrange it, but I think that would be, I was all ready to try and sell that to the Harper government, but I couldn't get any support from City Council in 2001 for that kind of a proposal.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Fletcher, thank you. We have Councillor McMahon to ask questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Sewell.
Thank you.
So you have much to critique us about? Do you have anything to compliment us about?
What am I going to compliment you about? In terms of this housing thing, I'm not.
There's not one.
This is a major failure over a long period of time of city leadership.
So
There's no compliments from me on the affordable housing file of Toronto City Council.
So you're not keen on the task force that was established? You're not impressed with that?
I'm not aware of a task force. I haven't been invited to be in any task force, no.
Or the
last one I was
first
invited
work?
to be on was Regent Park, and I resigned because I thought I don't want to get a heart attack. I'm so discouraged at what they're doing in Regent.
So you don't feel we're finally moving forward?
That's correct, I don't.
You don't. And you don't acknowledge that it's been 2 years into current administration's term and we are moving forward?
That's a bit of a start. You got to be much stronger, much tougher.
And
We don't want to be in these situations. Go up and look at those units for yourself. There's no way you can come away being proud of Toronto when you look at, I've got photos here if you want to see them.
Sure.
It's really discouraging.
And what worked best in your time when you were here?
Oh, well, we were building City Home. We were building an awful lot of affordable housing back then, and it's worked very, very well. What we didn't get to do, I'm sorry, is start to redevelop public housing. I tried to do that when I was the head of the Metro Housing Authority, but the minister stopped me, so that was a real pity. But we built a lot. The City Home stuff is really good stock. I think everybody would agree with that. It works very, very well. That's what we built in the 70s.
Thank you.
It's a golden age, I say. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. No, sorry, not done yet. You volunteered yourself.
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Sewell, for coming in. Based on the timeline in the staff report in front of us and the time you were a mayor, the early deterioration of these buildings occurred on your watch, according to some. Would you agree with that?
Of the public housing units?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I was mayor 70, 79, and 80. These buildings had just been opened a year or two later. There's no question that...
You had said earlier that they'd been built shabbily, so based on the life cycle, you said earlier in your deputation they had been built poorly. So in the life cycle...
We've since learned that, that's correct.
It started deteriorating under your watch.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
There's no question, I was the chair of the Housing Authority in the mid-'80s. I was aware of the problems then, and I was trying to change them.
No, you're coming in here to lecture us, and I'm just...
Yep, I sure did.
You have a role in that, too.
Sure did.
Now, you've mentioned we should take the money from somewhere else. What social programs do you recommend we cut?
None of them. I wouldn't cut any social programs.
Earlier,
I'd take
you
it
had
from
said
other
we should
places.
take the money from something else.
Sorry?
Earlier in your deputation, you'd said we should take the money from something else. I'm wondering what social programs you recommend we cut.
I wouldn't cut any social programs, thank you very much. But I would, if you want me to be specific, forget about the repair of the Gardiner Expressway, the eastern end of the Gardiner, and spend that money instead on fixing public housing units.
And finally, we'll
There's a
wrap up.
real simple
You've taken your message to the federal and provincial governments who also have a responsibility to help fund our housing stock. I'm sure you've been there as well.
Yeah, I'm talking here to Toronto City Council at the moment.
Thank you.
I'll just, in thanking you, because I think that's the end of the questions, and it's always good to have you here, as it is at the Police Services Board. But I will just say, first of all, it's fine to say you're here at Toronto City Council, but I would invite you and encourage you to lend your considerable voice and passion on this to speaking to the other governments, because even you this morning said a number of times the stuff that you're proud of, and justifiably so, and I've said that publicly, as you know, with regard to affordable housing done during your time, including St. Lawrence Market, would not have happened if it wasn't for the support from the other governments that you acknowledge as a result of the minority government and all the rest. And I encourage you respectfully, as a former mayor, to lend your voice to the fact we're trying right now, as we speak, and we have been for 2 years here, more than 2 years, before my time, to get money to allow us to magnify and multiply the efforts we're making, where we've invested $1 billion of city-derived funds, $1 billion in the last 3 years or 4 years in these repairs. But we need these other governments to partner, and your voice will carry some weight. I say that sincerely, and it would help if you went there too. It's fine you're here, but we need you there too to go and say the same things you said here. Thank you, sir. Okay.